Hi, I'm Richard Russell, I'm at Amoeba, and this is what's in my bag. I feel like A Tribe Called Quest are kind of like our Beatles.
Can I kick it? Yes, you can. Well, I'm gone.
All of their albums are great. I was born in 71, maybe if you were born in 61, the Beatles would have been your Beatles. This, I feel like, is our Beatles. And this came out when I was working in a record store in New York called Vinyl Mania. So it's kind of linked to that place and time for me, but it's eternal. All the samples, Q-Tip, Five, the whole thing is so beautiful.
See the levels peaking as the rhythms keep it screeching. A quest, yes, a quest inside the jam, I will keep reaching. The point, oh yes, the point, because it's closer, yes, so far. The liveliness is mean as we scoot across the star.
But I also had an object associated with this, which was, because I was working in a record store, there was a promo item they did for this album, which was a Tribe Called Quest wallet, because they had the song I Left My Wallet in El Segundo.
Left my wallet in El Segundo. I gotta get it, I got to get it.
And they sent a black wallet with the green Tribe Called Quest, the logo in green on the front. And this wallet got sent to the store, and I was like, I'm the most junior member of this staff, but I need that wallet. And eventually they gave it to me. That's full of many memories of the second record shop I worked in.
From the Zulu nation, from a town called Paris, came to America to find liberty. Instead of finding pleasure, all you found was misery. But listen, Lucian, you have a friend in me. Oh.
This was more what was going on in the first record shop I worked in, which was called Loppy Lugs in Edgware, which was like a suburban northwest London record shop. And Wham were very, very big in there.
Wake me up before you go. Don't leave me hanging on like a yo-yo.
Now, George worked on that high street as well, sometime before. So by the time I worked in the shop, George was already famous. But he worked in his father's restaurant, which was at the other end of the high street. So there was some strong George Michael vibes there, and everyone came in for Wham. This is actually a US version of Make It Big. This is a US version of what in the UK was called The Final, and their last show they did was also called The Final. And this was the time when bands used to bow out, and that was it. When they did their last show, that was their last show. When the Jam did their last... I mean, I understand why bands get back together now. There's maybe greater temptations than there were, greater incentives than there were at that time. George and Andy was forever, but just for that moment. And I would always love Wham.
Don't you know who I am? Baby, I'm your man.
So I went for Goblin.
I'm an overachiever, so how about I start a team of leaders and pick up Stevie Wonder to be the wide receiver?
I feel like Tyler is like 1,000 miles ahead of everyone else at the moment, and he's kind of in his own space. And maybe it's like what it was like with Bowie in the 70s or something, when you could probably tell here's someone in their own space. They're kind of doing something totally different to everyone else. I'm incredibly proud this came out on XL, so this was like his first kind of proper release, and yeah, he's just so inspirational and so brilliant, and I'm super fan. And he's LA, and I feel like LA being back to being a real centre of music again is not unrelated to Tyler being here. I think those things are quite, because it's like, if you're a musician, it's like, well, if Tyler's there, it must be all right. But I kind of think, in a way, the same applies to Billie Eilish as well.
I could eat that girl for lunch, yeah, she dances on my tongue, tastes like she might be the one.
These feel like the pace setters to me, who are just getting better and better. And this song on this one, this Birds of a Feather song, which is on this, is my favourite thing she's ever done.
I'll love you till the day that I die, till the day that I die.
To me, they're sort of vaguely connected in some way, of being like my favourite artists at doing what they do, and yeah, just great. And making great albums, as well as being great icons.
I can see her in the back of my mind. Oh.
Grace Jones was so far ahead. I think still is, actually. Presenting herself in a way no one had ever done before, doing exactly what she wanted, no rules, no restrictions, and the music's so incredible.
Parisian music drifting from the bar.
The sound of these records for me is like a real holy grail kind of sound. So they used to record it. They were recording at Compass Point in the Bahamas, Sly and Robbie with the rhythm section, a guy called Wally Badrou who was the keys player, and there was a sound to this which to me is like an ultimate thing to sort of look for, to try and make a sound like that. There's something about the fact that she's so radical, like she's as radical as any punk artist was, more radical than a lot of the punk artists were in a lot of ways, but the music's very, very listenable, really soulful and warm.
Whistling in the darkness, shining in the night, coming to conclusion, night is right, it's time.
This album's actually like covers, yeah, because like Night Clubbing, which is my favourite cut on this, was a Lou Reed song, which was co-written by David Bowie.
Night clubbing, night clubbing, we walk like a ghost.
So there's all sorts of amazing stories in this, and the artwork, and Sly and Robbie, and her just being, she's just completely on her own level. We love you, Grace. Thank you. This is like growing up music.
Stop your fooling around. Tie you straight and right out.
I've somehow never had a copy of this on vinyl. I think because I was at the stage where I was still, it was like pocket money to buy records. And I had the Gangsters 7-inch single, which was the first single they put out. And I don't think I ever got the album, but somehow I know every song on it. This was like a vision of multicultural Britain. This was, every playground was about this when I was like 10 and 11 years old. So they're on this label from Coventry, doing like this combination of punk and reggae, and somehow this just becomes like the pop music of the UK at that time, and it was inescapable. We were sort of trying to dress like this, which was really, really hard to do, and like to look, you know, this whole image, it was so powerful, and the label Two-Tone, and this label, they only put out about 6 albums, and this is like one of the most famous record labels of all time. It only lasted for like 3 years or something. After the Specials, Terry Hall, who was there, who is one of the greatest British singer-songwriters of all time, he started another band called the Funboy 3. It seemed to like exist straight after the Specials. Like it seemed like it was a few weeks and the Funboy 3 had turned up, which was 3 guys from the Specials. And this was their second album. The first one's called FB3, and it's got the Lunatics have taken over the asylum. It's incredible. But this one, I've never had on vinyl. And this one I've often looked for on vinyl. So this is an exciting moment for me to have waiting.
It doesn't matter what they say. In the jealous games people play.
This was produced by David Byrne, and it's really great from start to finish. It's got a song called Well Fancy That, which is a song about something terrible that happened to Terry Hall on a trip to France. Really heavy. Terry Hall, rest in peace. That's a very special record. Thanks, Amoeba. Really pleased I found that.
My first time abroad, a school trip to France. Well, fancy that.
Burial, I think, will be seen as one of the greatest things to happen to music at this time, in 50 years' time. I mean, not that he's not appreciated now, but I think this will be more and more appreciated as time goes on. You know, it's a person, people don't really know him or really know who he is. He's completely like separate from everything. Doesn't DJ, doesn't play live, doesn't really do anything which would seem to be in the interest of making money. That's just not what he's doing. You know, it's like, this is like pure art. Burial was an artist who kind of got me back into making music when I stopped making music. I just found what he did so inspiring, and it made me want to like sit on a laptop and try and make music. And the other artist who had a similar effect on me was Forte. That you can hear this is very hip hop influenced and jazz influenced, but it's one guy making electronic noises and doing it brilliantly. In LA, some LA hip hop.
When we first met in 82, back in school, used to play all the blues. Sometimes you be my number 5, sometimes you be my 22.
This to me, as I perceive it, because I wasn't here, but this really feels like LA and the West Coast. And maybe like a sort of precursor of Tyler in some way, because I feel like they were a bit outside of what everyone else was doing, a bit like what people would call alternative, which is never a great word, but they were something a bit different. This one has Return of the B-Boy, which is not one of the biggest tunes, but I love Return of the B-Boy, so that's the Far Side.
Yes, sure. I got the beat before the flavor of a beat, y'all. I stand tall, gets warm like beef, y'all. I move like a cow, honey tail.
I found a section out there which was like some kind of used 80s 12 inches, pop, mostly pop, and this was like going into some weird like time warp. So Julian Cope, World Shut Your Mouth. He was in a band called The Teardrop Explodes. Great psychedelic Liverpool band. Then he became a solo artist.
The poppies are in the field, but don't ask me what that means.
And then yeah, in that same section I was finding this so Herbie Hancock, one of the greatest jazz keyboardists of all time, decided to make a hip hop record. Inspired by Malcolm McLaren's Buffalo Girls.
What I brought to the table that I hadn't had before was I had just heard scratching on another record of Malcolm McLaren. You know, Buffalo Gals was the name of it. And I liked that sound.
For Buffalo gals go around the outside, round the outside, round the outside. For Buffalo gals go around the outside and don't your partners.
Apparently everyone said to him, don't do that. Do not make an attempted hip-hop record for break dancers. And this was like the biggest commercial song he ever put out. Malcolm McLaren, after he did Buffalo Girls, which was his attempt at hip-hop, he tried he was the guy who managed the Sex Pistols, and he tried a whole bunch of things. One of them was opera, but with an 808 drum machine, and that was Madame Butterfly, and it's sick. Style Council, the band that happened after the Jam, Paul Weller, bit like the Fun Boy 3 and the Specials. It was like, whoa, they'd like that band's just split up and there's this new one. And they're also great.
Money go around, watch your money go around. They got it wrapped up tight, they got it safe and sound. Watch your money go around, watch your money go around. She fought from grace and hit the ground.
And this song, Head Start for Happiness, just a really beautiful ballad.
God's a head start for happiness for our heart. Guess we must be blessed for this feeling to be so strong. Tell me, is that so wrong?
Now this is a 12-inch by a group called Starpoint called What You've Been Missing.
She took you for a ride. You lost all your pride. Now you're caught running back, boy.
This is like an 80s soul joint, and I was into this. I knew about this because we used to have these compilations at home called Street Sounds. And Street Sounds, they used to like license the 10 hottest US soul 12 inches of that time and put out the full-length versions on one album. And these albums, I then blew my mind. Whoever put those albums together, that was a real service he did for us of curation. Actually, I do know he was called Morgan Khan because he was a bit of a hero.
Morgan Khan's empire grew into a multi-million-pound concern. He was hailed as the saviour of British dance music.
Now, I don't know this song. I think Karen Young Hager had a song called Hot Shot. The label is really interesting. So West End was like one of the great New York disco labels in the kind of Paradise Garage era. And it was operated out of the basement of Vinyl Mania, which is the shop where I worked. I'm interested to check out this Karen Young tune. I've never heard it. And this whole like West End, this sort of iconography of it.
But I can build you up, break you down, knock you 10 feet under the ground, make you good, make you bad, turn you wild and drive you mad, 'cause baby, you ain't nothing without me.
These guys, Yellow Magic Orchestra. They were a Japanese four-piece. Ryuichi Sakamoto was in Yellow Magic Orchestra, who became quite a famous composer. They were like an electro-pop group, but it started in 1979. This is way ahead of its time. I think kind of similarly to what Kraftwerk were doing in Germany. They're in Japan, and they're making music which is just like the future, where they've got it. They've worked out what people are going to be doing now. And this song, Behind the Mask, has this crazy story attached to it because one of the people who heard it when it came out was Michael Jackson. And he like sampled the whole of it and recorded it for Thriller, and then they couldn't clear it. So Geordie Greep, I heard one song by him, I thought it was amazing. I was like, what is this? Who is this?
Holy, 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 holy.
Do you know my name? Of course you know my name.
I found out he's one of the guys from the group Black Midi.
The Ludwig Clash of the Century, February 31st, 2163, I was there.
I'm super excited about hearing the album. Finally, some Bill Callahan, who I've also been working with recently. When I first got into Bill Callahan, I came in and bought all his records. If you haven't heard Bill Callahan, there's a whole world of amazing music to discover there, and he becomes like a friend to you, his voice, and Smog, which is his group. So I was just coming to Amoeba and buying lots of Bill Callahan and Smog.
Thank you so much for talking with us today.
It's a pleasure.
It was wonderful having you in. You found so much good stuff.
Pleasure.
Night creature, it's your turn to shine. In the streetlights you'll find your kind. Armadillos and porcupines. Where stars shine.
Amoeba.